The desert wind howled like a wounded animal, whipping sand across the cracked asphalt of Route 17, where the sun hung low and merciless, painting the horizon in blood-red streaks. In the shadow of a derelict gas station, its pumps rusted skeletons against the fading light, a little girl no older than 8 huddled on the ground, her small frame trembling. She clutched a crumpled piece of paper, her cheeks streaked with tears that carved clean paths through the dust on her face. Her dress, once bright with faded flowers, was torn at the hem, and faint marks on her arms spoke of rough handling, signs of recent distress that twisted the gut of anyone who might pass by. She rocked back and forth, whispering to herself, her voice a fragile thread lost in the vast emptiness. No cars had stopped in hours. This stretch of road was forgotten, a graveyard for travelers who knew better than to linger after dusk. From the east, the rumble grew, a low thunder that vibrated through the earth like the heartbeat of some ancient beast awakening. It started as a distant growl, then swelled into a symphony of engines, heavy and unyielding. A convoy of motorcycles crested the rise, their chrome gleaming like polished silver under the dying sun. 39 riders strong, they cut through the heat haze, leather vests patched with the emblem of the Iron Oath. A clenched fist wrapped in chains, symbolizing unbreakable bonds forged in fire. At the lead was Ethan Harlan, a man whose face bore the map of old wars. A jagged scar tracing his jawline from a shrapnel kiss in some forgotten desert skirmish, eyes shadowed by losses that time hadn't erased. His bike, a black beast with custom exhausts that spat fire on command, led the pack as they rode in tight formation, a rolling fortress of loyalty. Ethan's gloved hand shot up, signaling the halt. The convoy slowed, engines purring down to a menacing idle. Dust clouds settling like veils around the bikes. The riders dismounted in unison, boots crunching gravel, their presence a wall of muscle and resolve against the encroaching night. Whispers rippled through the group. Veterans of the road, brothers bound by oaths sworn over campfires and caskets. They had been en route to their annual gathering in the canyons, a ritual to honor the fallen. When Ethan's gut twisted with that old instinct, the one that had saved his squad more times than he could count. "Eyes sharp," he growled, his voice gravel-rough from years of shouting over engines and gunfire. The girl looked up, her wide eyes reflecting the bikers like mirrors to another world, and in that moment, something shifted, an invisible thread pulling at the edges of forgotten promises. She scrambled back at first, pressing against the gas station wall, but one rider, a burly figure named Marcus with tattoos snaking up his neck like vines, knelt slowly, palms open. "Hey, kiddo," he said softly, his tone a rare gentleness amid the leather and steel. "You lost? What's got you out here alone?" The girl hesitated, then unfolded the paper with shaking hands. It was a drawing, crayon strokes bold and childlike, wheels in motion, angels with wings of flame riding them, a circle of fierce guardians under a starry sky. At the bottom, in wobbly letters, "My angels on wheels." The bikers crowded closer, the air thick with the scent of hot metal and exhaust, and a murmur spread like wildfire. Ethan took the drawing, his calloused fingers careful, as if it were fragile glass. The image hit him like a punch, those wheels, the wings, the unyielding circle. It was no random scribble. It echoed the murals in their clubhouse, tributes to brothers lost on the road and in battle. But it was the face in the center, a small figure with pigtails, that froze the blood in his veins. "Where'd you get this?" he asked, crouching to her level, his voice steady but laced with urgency. The girl sniffled, wiping her nose on her sleeve. "Daddy drew it with me, before the bad men took him. He said the angels would come if I needed them. Said to find the road with the big sun rock." Her words hung in the air, evoking ghosts Ethan thought he'd buried deep. The convoy had been riding for peace that day, but now the past clawed its way back. Ethan remembered the call 2 years prior, a brother named Lucas, one of their own, who'd gone off-grid after a botched protection job against some shadowy outfit, peddling lies and extortion in the border towns. Lucas had a daughter, this girl, hidden away for safety. He'd made Ethan swear it. "If anything happens to me, you watch over her. She's the promise we all keep." Ethan had nodded then, the weight of it settling like chains, but life on the road had pulled him away. Jobs, losses, the grind of survival. Until now. The drawing wasn't just art, it was a beacon, a cry from the grave that demanded action. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced like spectres, the bikers formed a protective ring around the girl. Her name was Lily, she whispered, and the bad men, faceless enforcers from a corrupt network that preyed on the vulnerable, had come for her father's secrets, relics of old debts and hidden truths. Ethan's mind raced, piecing together the fragments. Lucas had uncovered something big, a web of institutional rot that reached into small town halls and beyond, threatening the innocent. The girl's drawing had called them, unwittingly fulfilling the oath. "We're the angels," Ethan said, his voice firm as he placed a hand on her shoulder. "And we're taking you home." The engines roared back to life, a chorus that drowned out the wind's lament. Lily climbed onto the back of Ethan's bike, her small arms wrapping around his waist, the drawing tucked safely in his vest. The convoy moved out, headlights piercing the twilight like stars falling to earth. But as they rode, Ethan felt the stirrings of a storm, not just the sand whipped up behind them, but a deeper reckoning. This wasn't a simple rescue. It was the spark that would ignite old loyalties, force confrontations with shadows long ignored, and test the iron oath like never before. In the rear view, the gas station shrank to a speck, but the promise it unearthed loomed larger than the night sky, binding them all in a ride toward redemption or ruin. The night swallowed Route 17 whole, turning the endless blacktop into a ribbon of silver under the moon's cold gaze. Ethan's bike led the way, its engine a steady growl that cut through the chill, Lily's small body pressed against his back like a fragile anchor. Her arms clung tight, knuckles white against his leather jacket, the warmth of her breath seeping through the fabric, a reminder that innocence could still find its way into a world scarred by betrayal. Behind them, the convoy stretched like an iron serpent, 39 headlights blazing a path through the dark, tires humming over cracks that whispered of forgotten miles. The air carried the sharp tang of desert sage and cooling exhaust, mingling with the faint, sweet scent of Lily's hair, untouched by the road's grit. Ethan's mind churned like the pistons beneath him, fragments of the past resurfacing with every mile. Lucas, his brother in arms, forged in the heat of desert patrols where promises were the only currency that mattered. They'd met in the haze of a long-ago deployment. Two kids from nowhere trading stories of home over MREs and starlit watches. Lucas had always been the dreamer, sketching wild ideas on napkins, bikes as saviors, riders as guardians against the chaos. "We're the ones who keep the light burning," he'd say, his laugh rough but genuine, when Lucas vanished 2 years back, chasing leads on a syndicate that twisted justice into knots, preying on border families with threats and shadows. Ethan had buried the guilt deep. But oaths didn't fade. They waited, patient as the dunes. Lily shifted slightly, her voice a murmur lost to the wind. "Are we going fast enough? They might come back." Ethan glanced in the side mirror, catching her wide eyes reflecting the tail lights. "Faster than shadows, kid, hold on." He twisted the throttle, the bike surging forward, the pack matching his pace in seamless rhythm. Marcus rode flank, his massive frame a bulwark on the left, while up ahead the road forked toward the Badlands, a labyrinth of canyons where the Iron Oath had once hidden their own from prying eyes. No one spoke of pursuit yet, but Ethan's instincts prickled. The bad men Lily mentioned weren't ghosts. They were flesh and greed, enforcers for a network that cloaked itself in official badges, siphoning protection from the weak. As the convoy descended into the first canyon, the walls rose like silent sentinels, red rock glowing faintly under starlight. The rumble echoed off the stone, amplifying their presence into something mythic. They pulled into a sheltered hollow, an old way station half buried in sand, its corrugated roof sagging like a weary sigh. Engines cut off one by one, the sudden silence heavy, broken only by the distant cry of a coyote. The bikers dismounted, forming a loose circle around a flickering fire pit that one of them, Ryan, with his salt and pepper beard and steady hands, coaxed to life with dry scrub. Flames danced, casting flickering shadows that played across weathered faces, illuminating patches and scars earned in equal measure. Lily slid off the bike, her legs wobbling on the uneven ground, but she stood tall, clutching the drawing like a talisman. Ethan knelt beside her, the fire's warmth battling the night's bite. "Tell us more about your daddy, Lily, everything you remember." She nodded, settling on a crate, the group leaning in, giants made gentle by her story. He worked with machines, big ones that moved stuff across the lines. But then the suits came, the ones with shiny cars and mean words. They wanted his papers, said it was about safety. Daddy hid me and drew this to keep me brave. He said if I was ever alone, I'd find the angels by the Sun Rock, that old station sign. Murmurs rippled through the riders. Ryan pulled out a battered canteen, offering her water with a nod. Sun Rock. Yeah, that marker's been there since the war days. Lucas always had a nose for symbols. Ethan felt the weight settle heavier. Lucas hadn't just vanished. He'd been silenced. The papers Lily mentioned. Likely ledgers exposing graft in the border trade, where corrupt officials turned blind eyes to smuggling rings that ruined lives. It wasn't just about money. It was a poison seeping into communities, families torn apart by fear. Ethan's own scars itched, a reminder of battles where loyalty meant everything and betrayal cut deepest. But doubt flickered in the firelight. Not everyone in the crew knew Lucas's full tale. Some were newer blood, bound by the oath but untested by its ghosts. A lean rider named Tyler, with eyes sharp as switchblades, crossed his arms. "This pulls us into old fires, Ethan. We're headed to the gathering for peace, not payback. What if it's a trap?" The words hung, tension coiling like smoke. Ethan met his gaze, unflinching. "Oath's not selective, brother. Lucas rode with us, bled with us. That girl?" He nodded to Lily, now tracing the drawing's lines with a finger. "She's the promise we swore. Turn back if you must, but I'm riding this through." The circle tightened, voices low and fervent, stories shared of their own lost kin, the family pieced together from fragments of road and regret. Marcus clapped Tyler's shoulder, a silent bridge. One by one nods came, the fire reflecting resolve in their eyes. Lily watched, her fear easing into something like wonder, as if the drawing had summoned not just saviors, but a tapestry of souls woven from shared pain. Dawn crept in slow, painting the canyon rims gold, the air crisp with promise and peril. They mounted up again. Lily secured once more behind Ethan, her trust a quiet victory. The convoy roared out, engines blending into the morning symphony, but Ethan knew the road ahead twisted toward confrontation. Whispers of scouts on the horizon, distant dust plumes that could be wind or watchers, stirred the air. Lucas's secrets weren't buried, they demanded unearth, and with them, a reckoning that would test every bond. As the sun climbed, bathing the bikes in light, the angels on wheels pressed on, their wheels turning not just miles, but the wheel of fate itself. And now, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The sun crested the canyon walls like a reluctant witness, its rays slicing through the morning haze to gild the convoy's chrome edges. Engines throbbed in unison, a mechanical heartbeat that echoed off the red rock spires, carrying the iron oath, deeper into the Badlands. Lily's grip on Ethan's waist had steadied, her small frame no longer rigid with fear, but leaning into the rhythm of the ride, as if the motion itself were a lullaby chasing away the shadows. The air rushed past, cool and laced with the mineral tang of stone and distant rain, whipping her pigtails like flags of fragile hope. Behind them, the 39 riders formed an unbreakable phalanx, their bikes kicking up veils of dust that swirled like ghosts reluctant to fade. Ethan's thoughts raced ahead, mapping the terrain in his mind's eye, the twisting paths that led to Hollow Ridge, a forgotten outpost where the Oath had once staged midnight runs for those fleeing the Syndicate's grasp. Lucas had scouted it years ago, his sketches as precise as the drawing Lily clutched. But now, with every mile, the weight of that oath pressed harder. He'd failed Lucas once, letting the road's distractions bury the promise under layers of routine patrols and half-forgotten toasts to the fallen. Redemption wasn't a word Ethan favored. It sounded too clean for the grit of real life. This was duty, raw and unyielding, the kind that bound men like chains forged in fire. A sharp crackle broke the wind's whisper, Tyler's voice over the radio, clipped and urgent. "Dust on the eastern flank, boss. 2 vehicles closing fast, not locals." Ethan's jaw tightened, his scarred hand flexing on the throttle. He signaled a veer, the convoy banking left into a narrower defile where the walls pinched the path like a vice. The bike surged, tires gripping loose gravel with a snarl, the formation compressing into a defensive wedge. Lily tensed against him, her whisper barely audible over the roar. "They're coming, like before." Ethan reached back, squeezing her knee gently. "Not today. We've got the high ground." The pursuers emerged from a side arroyo, 2 black SUVs burrowing through the dust like predators scenting blood. No markings, just tinted windows and the gleam of reinforced grills, hallmarks of the network's enforcers, the ones who wore suits under their shadows but rode roughshod over borders and lives. Bullets pinged off rock faces as the lead vehicle unleashed a burst, wild shots meant to scatter rather than strike. The bikers didn't flinch. Marcus peeled off to the right, his shotgun barking in response, the boom reverberating like thunder in a bottle. Ryan flanked left, laying down suppressive fire with precise bursts from his sidearm, forcing the SUVs to swerve. Ethan gunned it toward a bottleneck, a natural choke point where boulders framed the road like ancient guardians. "Hold tight, Lily!" The bike leaped forward, the pack converging behind him. One SUV fish-tailed, clipping a rock and spinning out, its driver bailing with hands raised. A hired gun, face pale with the realization he'd bitten off more than he could chew. The second pressed on, engine howling, but the convoy's unity turned the defile into a trap. Tyler and 2 others boxed it in, engines revving in warning, while Ethan dismounted in a fluid motion, drawing his piece with the calm of a man who'd stared down worse. The SUV skidded to a halt, doors flying open. 3 men spilled out, hard-eyed in tactical vests that screamed private muscle, not law. The leader, a wiry type with a shaved head and a tattoo peeking from his collar, leveled a glare. "This ain't your fight, bikers. Hand over the girl. Makes things easy." Ethan's stance was rock steady, the sun catching the iron oath patch on his vest, its chains seeming to tighten in the light. Lily peeked from behind him, her drawing peeking from her pocket like a secret weapon. "She's under our protection," Ethan said, voice low and edged with steel. "Tell your bosses Lucas's secrets die with him, or with you." Tension coiled, thick as the dust settling around their boots. The men shifted, weapons half raised, but the circle of riders closed in, 39 shadows, engines idling like growls, eyes burning with the fire of shared oaths. Marcus loomed largest, his bulk a promise of consequence. One enforcer muttered into a radio, then backed off, hands up. "This ain't over. The network knows faces." They retreated to their vehicle, tires spinning as it reversed into the arroyo, leaving only echoes and the acrid scent of burnt rubber. The convoy exhaled as one, remounting with nods and grim smiles, but the skirmish had stirred deeper currents. As they pushed on toward Hollow Ridge, the Badlands unfolding in waves of ochre and shadow, Ethan pulled Lily aside at a brief halt by a trickling spring. The water's murmur was a rare softness amid the stone, bubbles catching sunlight like fleeting jewels. "Your daddy, he ever mention a place called the Ridge? A safe haven?" Lily nodded, dipping her fingers in the cool flow, her face thoughtful. "He said it was where the angels gathered strength. There's a box there, with his work, to make things right." Ethan's pulse quickened. The box, likely a cache of documents, proofs of the syndicate's rot, falsified permits, payoffs to officials who looked the other way, while families like Lily's were shattered. Lucas hadn't just hidden his daughter, he'd planted seeds for justice, trusting the oath to water them. But retrieving it meant entering the heart of contested ground, where the network's influence clung like burrs. Whispers among the riders confirmed it. Scouts had reported increased patrols, badges bought and loyal only to greed. By midday, they crested the ridge's rim, a vast bowl of eroded earth ringed by wind-carved hoodoos that stood like silent judges. The old outpost squatted at the center, a cluster of weathered shacks with boarded windows and a flagpole bent by storms, flying nothing but memory. The bikes rolled in formation, circling the site like wolves scenting a den. Dismounting, the air hummed with caution. Ryan checked the perimeter, his boots silent on the parched ground, while Tyler scanned the horizon through binoculars, the lenses glinting like watchful eyes. Inside the main shack, dust motes danced in shafts of light, piercing the cracks, the space redolent of aged wood and faint oil. Lily led the way, her steps sure, drawn by instinct to a loose floorboard under a scarred table. With Ethan's help, it lifted, revealing a metal lockbox, its surface etched with Lucas's initials and the oath's fist. The click of the latch echoed like a vow renewed. Inside, sealed envelopes, a ledger thick with notations, photos of shadowed meetings, evidence of corruption that snaked from local enforcers to higher echelons, preying on the vulnerable with threats veiled as law. Ethan's fingers traced the pages, the weight of revelation settling like canyon dust. This wasn't just rescue, it was uprising, a moral firecracker in a powder keg of lies. Lily touched a photo of her father, smiling amid the crew, and whispered, "He knew you'd come." The riders gathered, the box passed hand to hand, faces hardening with purpose. But outside, a low rumble grew, not engines but thunderheads massing on the horizon, dark and pregnant with storm. The network wouldn't let this slide. Scouts would report back, and retribution would ride hard. As the group fortified the outpost, barricading doors, posting watches, the air thickened with unspoken resolve. Ethan stood on the porch, wind tugging at his jacket, Lily at his side. The Badlands stretched endless, a canvas for the battles ahead. But in that moment, the oath felt unbreakable, a circle of steel against the gathering dark. Promises once buried now breathed life, pulling them toward a justice that demanded everything and promised nothing less than honor reclaimed. The first raindrops fell, a pattering like hesitant applause as the angels on wheels prepared for the tempest. Rain lashed the outpost like a vengeful spirit, turning the Badlands into a churning sea of mud and shadow. Thunder rolled through the canyons, a deep bellow that shook the shack's timbers, while lightning etched jagged scars across the sky, illuminating the Iron Oath's vigil in stark flashes. Inside the main room, the air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and oiled leather, the lockbox open on the scarred table like a Pandora's chest spilling secrets. Ethan paced the creaking floorboards, his boots leaving wet prints, the weight of the ledger in his hand, a tangible anchor to the storm raging both outside and within. Lily huddled near the flickering lantern, her drawings smoothed out beside her. The crayon angels, now guardians, against the gale's fury. The riders had scattered to posts, Marcus at the door, his shotgun a silent sentinel, Ryan and Tyler on the roof, peering through rain-slicked binoculars into the roiling dark. The evidence inside the box painted a damning portrait, pages detailing payoffs to crooked officials, routes where the network funneled illicit goods under the guise of aid, families like Lily's caught in the crossfire, their lives bartered for silence. Lucas's notes were meticulous, a soldier's precision applied to the shadows, names, dates, handshakes in back rooms that twisted justice into knots. This goes deeper than borders, Ethan muttered to the group huddled around the table, his voice cutting through the rain's drumbeat. It's rot from the inside, poisoning the well for everyone. A crack of thunder masked the first distant rumble, not weather, but engines, low and predatory, slicing through the storm. Tyler's voice crackled over the radio, urgent against the static. Contacts inbound, 3 o'clock. 4 rigs, heavy. They're not slowing for the mud. Ethan's scar pulled tight as he grabbed his jacket, the leather slick with runoff. Fortify. No one touches the girl or the box. The convoy's unity had carried them here, but now the oath faced its crucible. Not just survival, but the moral fire of exposing truths that could shatter alliances built on sand. Lily's eyes widened, but she clutched the drawing tighter, whispering to the paper as if invoking its promise anew. The enforcers burst from the arroyo like demons conjured by the tempest, their SUVs churning mud into froth, headlights cutting fog like accusatory beams. No subtlety now. The network had mobilized, drawn by the scout's report, intent on burying Lucas's legacy before it could breathe. Bullets whined through the rain, splintering wood and pinging off metal shutters, the outpost transforming into a besieged fortress. Marcus returned fire from the porch, his blasts methodical, forcing one vehicle to veer into a ditch where it bogged down with a defeated groan. Ryan's rifle spoke from above, picking off tires with surgical calm, the cracks lost in the thunder's roar. Ethan pulled Lily behind a barricade of crates, his body a shield as glass shattered nearby. Stay low, kid. We've got this. Her small hand found his, trembling but unyielding, a spark of Lucas's spirit in her grip. Outside, the skirmish escalated, bikes revving as riders mounted for a counterpush, engines snarling defiance. Tyler led a flank, his crew weaving through the downpour, using the terrain's folds to harry the attackers. One SUV circled too close, its grille looming like a beast's maw. But Marcus stepped into the fray, unloading a barrage that shattered the windshield and sent it spinning into a boulder with a metallic crunch. In the chaos, a figure broke from the fray, a lone enforcer, drenched and desperate, slipping through the side door with a knife glinting in the lantern light. He lunged for the table, eyes fixed on the box, but Ethan was faster, tackling him to the floor in a tangle of limbs and fury. They grappled amid the mud tracked inside, fists flying, the intruder's breath hot with curses. "You don't know what you're stirring," he spat, pinned beneath Ethan's knee. "The network owns these lands. Judges, sheriffs, all of them." Ethan wrenched the knife away, his forearm pressing the man's throat. "Then it's time they lost the deed. Lucas saw through you. We all do now." The fight spilled out into the storm, the enforcer scrambling for escape only to meet Ryan's boot, ending in a subdued heap. As the last vehicle retreated, tail lights fading into the sheets of rain like retreating specters, the outpost fell into a wary hush. The bikers regrouped, faces streaked with water and resolve, tending minor scrapes with field kits amid the patter of lingering drops. No losses on their side, a testament to the oath's bond, forged tighter in the crucible. But victory tasted bittersweet. The attack confirmed the stakes. The network wouldn't stop. They'd escalate, pulling strings to brand the riders as outlaws, twisting the truth to bury it deeper. Ethan knelt by Lily, wiping rain from her face with a bandana, the gesture paternal in its quiet care. "Your daddy's work. It's a light in the dark, but shining it means more storms." She nodded, unfolding the drawing once more, pointing to the circle of angels. "They fought together, like you." The words pierced him, echoing the promises sworn in smoke-filled rooms and under starlit skies, lealties that outlasted wars and wanderings. Marcus approached, clapping Ethan's shoulder, his voice a low rumble. "We ride for the canyon meet at dawn. Share this with a full crew. Let the oath decide the next move." As the storm ebbed, moonlight piercing the clouds like hesitant hope, the group secured the box in a saddlebag. Engines humming softly in standby, whispers circulated, tales of similar shadows haunting other chapters of their lives, families chosen in the forge of hardship. Tyler, once doubtful, now gripped his handlebars with renewed fire, the skirmish etching the girl's fate into his conscience. Ethan mounted up, Lily settled behind him, her arms a steady loop of trust. The Badlands stretched onward, mud-slicked and unforgiving, but the road ahead gleamed with purpose to deliver the evidence to those who could wield it, confronting the corruption not with bullets alone, but with the unyielding truth of honor. The convoy rolled out under the clearing sky, stars emerging like witnesses to their vigil. The wheels turning toward a dawn, heavy with reckoning. Promises once a whisper on the wind, now roared like engines, binding the angels on wheels in a ride that would redefine loyalty or break it forever. If this chapter stirred your sense of justice and brotherhood, please hit that like button to show your support. The first hints of dawn bled across the Badlands like spilled ink, softening the jagged edges of the hoodoos into silhouettes of weary giants. The convoy carved a path through the lingering mud, engines purring with a subdued rhythm that spoke of hard-won respite, tires churning the earth into a wake of damp furrows. Ethan's bike led the pack once more, Lily's presence a steady warmth against his back, her cheek resting against the leather of his vest as if the motion had lulled her into a fragile sleep. The air carried the fresh bite of rain-washed stone and sage, mingling with the faint, metallic tang of gunpowder that still clung to their clothes, a reminder that the storm's fury had been but a prelude to the gathering tempest. Behind them, the 39 riders rode in vigilant waves, headlights dimmed to ghosts in the half-light, scanning the horizons for any sign of renewed pursuit. Marcus flanked the rear, his massive frame a bulwark against the unknown, while Ryan and Tyler scouted ahead, their bikes dipping into shallow washes like hounds on a scent. The lockbox, secured in Ethan's saddlebag, bumped rhythmically with each jolt. Its contents a silent cargo of reckoning, pages that could unravel the network's web, exposing the venal hands that pulled strings from shadowed offices to dusty backroads. Ethan felt its weight like an extension of his own scars, a physical echo of the oaths that had bound him to Lucas, to the girl, to the road itself. As the sun crested fully, bathing the canyons in a golden haze, the terrain opened into the vast amphitheater of Echo Basin, the sacred ground for the Iron Oath's annual convergence. Nestled between sheer cliffs that amplified every sound into legend, the basin hummed with life. Over 100 bikes already arrayed in a sprawling circle, their chrome catching the light like a field of stars fallen to earth. Riders milled about, veterans with stories etched in wrinkles and ink, sharing coffee from dented mugs over low-burning fires that sent wisps of smoke curling toward the sky. The scent of sizzling bacon and strong brew cut through the morning chill, a communal hearth amid the wild expanse. Ethan signaled the halt, the convoy easing into the fray with a chorus of idling engines that drew eyes like magnets. Whispers spread through the crowd. Curious glances at the unfamiliar girl perched on the lead bike, her drawing peeking from her pocket like a cryptic flag. Dismounting, Ethan lifted Lily down gently, her small hand slipping into his with the trust of one who'd seen angels made flesh. The full assembly gathered, a sea of leather and resolve, patches gleaming under the rising sun. At the center stood Jacob, the oath's elder statesman, his silver hair tied back, eyes sharp as canyon winds. "Ethan," he rumbled, voice carrying over the murmur, "you ride in with ghosts on your tail. What stirred the basin before the first toast?" The group formed a natural arena around a weathered boulder, the traditional council stone, its surface polished by years of palms pressed in vow. Ethan placed the lockbox atop it, the metal thudding like a gavel's call to order. Lily stood beside him, unbidden but unafraid, her presence a quiet anchor as he unfolded the tale, from the derelict station and the drawing that pierced the veil of time, to Lucas's vanishing, the skirmishes in the mud and rain, the evidence now laid bare. He passed the ledger hand to hand, pages rustling like dry leaves in the breeze, faces hardening as the rot revealed itself, officials bartering souls for coin, networks preying on the borders forgotten. Lucas's notes a map to their undoing. Murmurs swelled into a tide, shock mingling with the fire of recognition. One rider, a grizzled figure named Nathan with a limp from an old crash, clutched a photo of Lucas mid-laugh. He was one of us, swore the oath in blood and chrome. We let him fade? Jacob nodded slowly, his gaze sweeping the circle, the cliffs echoing the weight of his words. Promises don't dissolve in dust, but this drags us into the viper's nest. The network's got reach, badges, lawyers, whispers in high places, expose them, and we paint targets on every back. Tension rippled. Boots shifting on the gravel, the air thick with the unspoken. The oath was family chosen in the forge of shared roads, but family fractured under pressure. Lily stepped forward then, her voice a clear bell amid the gravel chorus. "Daddy said the angels wouldn't run. The drawing. It's for all of you." She held it up, the crayon wheels and wings catching the light, and a hush fell, profound as the basin's depths. Eyes traced the lines, seeing not just art, but mirrors to their own murals, the tributes to brothers lost to similar shadows. Tyler, once the skeptic, knelt to her level, his sharp features softening. "Kid, you called us true. We're in." Nods cascaded, a wave of affirmation, stories erupted of personal stakes, a cousin silenced by the same greed, a town crushed under extortion's boot. The circle tightened, hands clasping shoulders, the oath renewing in the morning's glow. But resolve birthed strategy, born of hard wisdom. Jacob traced a finger over the ledger's maps, the sun climbing to warm the stone. "We don't charge blind. Split the crew. Half rides the evidence to safe hands, folks in the press who owe us favors, ones who'll shine light without flinching. The rest, we draw the heat, pull the network's eyes while the truth spreads." Ethan felt the plan settle like a well-oiled gear, his scar a faint itch under the approving glances. Lily's hand found his again, her squeeze a pact sealed. Marcus grinned, cracking his knuckles. "Let 'em come. We've wheels and will." And as the basin stirred to action, bikes fueled, packs checked, the air alive with purposeful hum, the cliffs seemed to lean in, witnesses to a turning tide. Scouts reported dust plumes on the distant rim, the network's hounds closing in, but fear had no foothold here. The drawing, now passed among the elders like a relic, bound them deeper, a child's vision igniting the fire of moral fury. Ethan mounted up, Lily secured once more, the full might of the oath arraying behind him, 100 strong now, engines blending into a thunder that promised not just ride, but revolution. The basin's echoes carried their departure, a roar that shook loose pebbles from the heights, as the angels on wheels surged toward the fray. Promises, unearthed and unbreakable, propelled them forward, toward a justice that would demand sacrifice, but yield the honor of souls redeemed. In the rear view, the council stone stood sentinel, But ahead lay the heart of the storm, where loyalty would be tested in fire and truth. The Badlands blurred into a frenzy of motion under the midday sun. The convoy's roar, a defiant symphony that drowned out the wind's howl through the canyons. Over 100 bikes now thundered as one, a steel tide surging from Echo Basin toward the network's shadowed heart. A cluster of nondescript warehouses on the border's edge, where deals were struck in the hush of loading docks and the flicker of fluorescent lights. Ethan's lead bike cut the forefront, Lily's arms a steady band around his waist, her trust woven into the leather like an invisible patch. The air whipped past, thick with the ozone bite of heated asphalt and the faint, acrid whisper of distant exhaust, carrying the weight of the ledger in his saddlebag like a heartbeat against his thigh. Behind them, the iron oath arrayed in precision, Jacob commanding the center flank, his silver hair streaming like a banner of enduring wisdom, Marcus and Ryan anchoring the wings, their bulk a promise of unyielding support, Tyler scouting the van, his once sharp doubts forged into razor focus. The drawing, now a shared talisman folded into Jacob's vest, had ignited them all, a child's vision, piercing the cynicism of years, reminding each rider of the oaths sworn not in ink, but in the blood of brothers like Lucas. No words passed over the radios, only signals, hand gestures sharp as knife edges, binding them in silent communion. The network's dust plumes chased from the rear, enforcers in a ragged pursuit. But the oath rode with purpose, not panic, drawing the hounds while the evidence raced ahead in a splinter group bound for allies in the free press. Ethan's mind replayed the Basin's counsel, the circle's nods sealing fates with quiet gravity. Lucas's notes weren't mere accusations, they were lifelines, proof of rigged bids that starved border clinics, threats that silenced witnesses, a web of corruption where officials traded honor for envelopes of cash. Exposing it meant more than justice for one girl. It was a reckoning for the forgotten. The families shattered by greed's cold grip. Lily stirred against him, her voice a murmur lost to the rush. Will it stop them? The bad men? Ethan glanced back, catching her eyes bright with a mix of fear and fire. It will light the way, kid. Truth's the strongest wheel we got. The warehouses loomed as the canyon mouth spat them onto flatland. Squat buildings huddled like conspirators under a haze of heat shimmer, chain-link fences rattling in the breeze. The oath split seamlessly, half-veered toward a concealed rendezvous point, the ledger entrusted to Nathan's steady hands for delivery to a journalist who'd once ridden with them, her pen sharper than any blade. The rest, Ethan's core, barreled straight into the lion's den, engines bellowing a challenge that echoed off corrugated walls. Enforcers swarmed from the gates, SUVs and pickups forming a hasty blockade, but the bikers didn't charge blindly. They circled, a vortex of chrome and resolve, forcing the network's men into the open, where hidden cameras, rigged by Tyler's quick work, captured every face, every barked order. Tires screeched as the confrontation unfolded, not in a hail of lead, but a standoff thick with tension, the air humming with idling motors and the sharp tang of overheated brakes. The lead enforcer, the same wiry man from the defile, stepped forward under a white flag of truce, his tactical vest sodden with sweat, eyes darting to the sea of patches encircling him. "Call off your dogs, Harlan. The girl's a pawn. Hand her over and we walk." Ethan's boot planted firm on gravel, Lily dismounting to stand at his side, small but unbowed, the drawing clutched like a shield. Jacob flanked him, the elder's presence a pillar of calm authority. "Pawns are for games you rig," Ethan replied, voice steady as canyon stone. "Lucas exposed your house of cards. The truth's already rolling. Your bosses will hear it before the day's dust settles." Murmurs rippled through the enforcers' ranks, doubt cracking their facade like fissures in dry earth. One younger man, face pale under the sun's glare, lowered his weapon, glancing at the warehouses where shadows of officials might lurk. The network thrived on fear, but the oath embodied loyalty's counterweight, A family chosen in the crucible of roads and regrets. Lily held up the drawing then, unfolding it high, the crayon angels bold against the glare. "These are my angels," she said, her voice carrying clear and unbroken. "They keep promises. Do you?" The words hung, a moral gauntlet, and in the silence that followed, the first defection came. A enforcer tossing his gun aside, hands raised, followed by two more, their allegiance crumbling under the weight of witnessed integrity. The wiry leader snarled, radioing for backup, but it was too late. Sirens wailed in the distance, not the network's bought badges, but genuine responders, alerted by the journalist's swift relay, the ledger's proofs already scanning into digital fire. The standoff dissolved into retreat, vehicles peeling away in disarray, leaving the warehouses exposed like gutted husks. Inside, under the oath's watchful eyes, files tumbled from offices, more evidence pouring out, a flood of corruption laid bare. No blood spilled in vengeance. Victory came in the quiet click of handcuffs on the willing turncoats, their confessions spilling like rain after drought, naming names that reached into city halls and beyond. As the sun dipped toward evening, painting the flatland in amber strokes, the oath regrouped at the basin's edge, the air cooling with the scent of sage and spent adrenaline. Lily sat on a rock, surrounded by riders who knelt like knights, sharing stories of their own redeemed paths. Veterans finding purpose in protection, wanderers anchored by the circle. Ethan watched, his scar a faint line in the twilight, the guilt of years easing like shadows, fleeing light. Jacob approached, clapping his shoulder, the drawing now pinned to the council stone as a new emblem. "Lucas rides with us still," he said simply, "and so does she." The girl smiled, tracing the angel's wings, her world reclaimed not by force, but by the unyielding thread of promise. The network's fall would unfold in courts and headlines, justice poetic in its patience, but here, in the heart of chosen family, redemption bloomed silent and profound. Engines hummed softly as the riders prepared to scatter, carrying the tale like embers to light other fires. Ethan lifted Lily onto his bike one last time, her arms looping true, the road ahead stretching clean and open. The angels on wheels had answered the call, their wheels turning not toward ruin, but toward a legacy of honor, where every scar told of loyalty unbroken and every promise endured. Thank you for joining us on this ride of redemption and unbreakable bonds. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe for more tales of courage and chosen family. We'd love to have you along for the journey.